K Narayan, the novelist, uses Malgudi, a small town, as the setting of almost all of his novels. This novel, Swami and Friends, depict the life of Swami and the way he looks at the world as a typical 10-year-old boy. It portrays his innocence, his love for friendship, his taking family for granted, and his dread for school and teachers. Welcome back to another video. In this video, we're going to discuss about K Narayan's Swami and Friends. The story begins on a Monday morning. Swami particularly hated Mondays because it destroys his delicious mood of freedom. After the fun and enjoyment of Saturday and Sunday, he hated to get into the Monday mood of work and discipline. He was in the first form section A of Albert Mission School, Malgudi. He hated everything about the school, the yellow building, the fire-eyed Vedanayagam, who was his class teacher, and the headmaster, who walked around with his thin, long cane. It was impossible for him to sit inside the class. The only thing that made it possible for him to survive inside the class was to look outside the window and watch the younger children of the infant standard playing and falling over one another, and at 12:30 the railway mail rattling through the river Sarayu bridge. As he was sitting inside the class, Vedanayagam, the sir, his class teacher, was teaching inside, but the teacher's voice only made Swami fall asleep and feel bored. And when the teacher asked them to bring their mathematics homeworks, Swami brought his note copy, and as Vedanayagam was checking his homework, he gazed into the teacher's face. According to his description of Vedanayagam, he feels that the teacher's eyes were too near to each other. There were more hair on his chin than he used to see from his bench. And Swami also felt that he looked uglier when seen closely. Vedanayagam punishes him by pinching him because his answers were all wrong. During history period, the children looked forward to their teacher, D. Pillai, because he was kind and funny too. He liked to be creative in his teaching. The narrator describes that the scripture period was not a dull period because their children would use their imagination to picture the parting of the Red Sea for the Israelites to cross. They would imagine the physical strength of Samson and Jesus raising from the dead. The only problem was that the scripture teacher, Ebenezer, was a fanatic. The teacher would call the Hindu students as wretched idiots who worshipped dirty, lifeless wooden idols and stone images. Then he would proclaim that Christianity as the true religion and Christ as the true God. He would compare Krishna and Jesus Christ, saying that Christ did not go about dancing and playing with girls like Krishna, or Christ did not steal butter like Krishna. Swami was a Hindu, and this angered him. It offended him. So he rose and asked, then why was Jesus crucified? If he is God, then why did he eat flesh and fish and drink wine? As a Brahmin boy, being a non-vegetarian was so ungodly. Ebenezer came near Swami and wrenched Swami's ear so hard that it turned red. At home, his father, on seeing the red ear, asked what happened, and he narrated the whole story that happened at school in scripture period. The father was not happy that there was religious intolerance going on in Swami's class, so he wrote a letter to the headmaster saying that his son was mishandled, and also complaining about hurting the Hindu religious sentiments. Now, Swami had many friends, but he had 4 best friends. Those were the people he liked and admired the most. First of all was Somu, the monitor, the class captain. He was a smart and brilliant boy whom all the teachers liked, and he was like the uncle of the class. You know, when the boys had any problem, they would approach Somu and they would tell them their problems to tell to the teachers. No one could control him except the headmaster. He was friendly with all the teachers, Second was Mani, the mighty good for nothing. He was the biggest and the tallest boy in the class. He hardly brings any books and forget about homework. He does not do it. He was the king of the last bench and he slept bravely in the last bench. No teacher tried to scold or correct him. Mani bullied everyone, wearing his cap in style with his Tamil novel under his arms. He had been studying in the school for as long as the school peon could remember. He always failed. But Swami was proud to have Mani as his friend because when everyone would be scared and terrified at the name of Mani, he could pat him on the back. The third was Sankar, the most brilliant boy of the class. He always scored 90% in the class. The boys would believe that if there was a cross-examination between the teachers and Sankar, the boys were sure that Sankar would win. His face was shiny and radiant. You know, when we talk about a brilliant boy, a typical brilliant boy or brilliant girl, they have this shiny face and just a nerdy kind of look. Swami sometimes would look at Sankar and wonder, where did he get all that brain to know everything? English, geography, grammar, and everything. Sometimes he would wonder, how does all this knowledge fit into that little brain? The fourth was Samuel. Samuel was also called the Bee because of his physical stature, because of his small size. He was an ordinary child, just like Swami. Both of them were weak students. The only thing that brought them together was their ability to laugh at the same things. They find the same things funny. They find every silly thing funny. They get one another's joke. A new student arrived at Albert Mission School, Malgudi. His name was Rajam. Rajam had impressed the whole class on his very first day. He was the son of the police superintendent who had just been transferred to Malgudi. He was well dressed and he was the only boy who wore socks and shoes. He had a fur cap and a wonderful coat. Rajam had come from Madras and spoke English very well, just like the Europeans, according to Swami. This Rajam at first became the enemy of Mani because on the first day itself, as a newcomer, he had gone straight to the last bench and bravely sat near Mani. To everyone's surprise, Mani got threatened and tried to hit Rajam, but Rajam hit him back. If Mani punched him, he would punch back. If Mani kicked, Rajam would kick back. One day, Mani challenged Rajam on a duel near River Sarayu under the condition that if anything happened, they would not tell their parents or he would not tell his father, the police superintendent. Swami also came to witness the duel. Mani had told him that he was going to hit Rajam with his club and throw him into the River Sarayu. Swami and Mani were waiting for Rajam. Mani even brought his wooden club, but Rajam had also come to fight with his gun. Mani said it was not fair. It was to be a hand-to-hand fight. So Rajam asked, then why did you bring your club? Mani gave up because with his club he could not fight against a gun. But Rajam clarified that he did not want to fight but to be friends. From that day on, a new friend was added to the group. At home, Swaminathan loved to tell stories about his friends to his grandmother. He told all about the new boy Rajam. One day Rajam invited Mani and Swami to his home. In front of his friends, he tried to order the servant around to impress his friends. Swami was so impressed with Rajam that he would always follow him around. So his other friends started calling him Tail, Rajam's tail. One day as Swami was loitering around, he saw a small drain and was watching a teen floating on the water, on the surface of the water. Then he took a paper and made a boat and he saw an ant. So he picked up the ant and put it in his paper boat and then he let it sail in the drain water. He saw the boat sailing with difficulty and rushing faster when suddenly a big leaf from the nearby tree fell on it and destroyed it and killed the ant. This symbolizes the friendship of Swaminathan, how it gets through hard times and good times, but eventually have to come to an end, as the friends have to part ways to live their own lives. Swami had also invited Rajam to his house. He made great demands to his family members. He asked his father to give him his room. He asked his mother to make nice things to eat and asked the cook to wear nice and clean shirt and dhoti while serving him and Rajam. He also warned his grandmother not to come out of her room. Rajam came to his home and had a good time and met his grandmother too and left. The next day when Swami entered the classroom, he saw TAIL written on the blackboard. And everyone was giggling. Swami felt embarrassed and angry, and he went and rubbed it off with his hands, and then he came down and he looked at Somu and Sankar who were laughing, and he hit them. Mani also joined the fight, and then they started fighting outside the class. One day Rajam invited Mani and Swami to his house, and to their surprise, their enemies Somu, Samuel and Sankar were already there. But Rajam talked about unity and strength and about the joy of friendship and also the evils of hatred. Rajam traded his toys for peacemaking among the friends, and everyone was finally friends again. Time flew by and exams were approaching, and everybody suddenly became very serious about their studies. Their school life during exam time is just like the typical exam days of our school. They were all tensed and anxious about the questions. After exam, they discussed about what they had written. On the last day of exam, they were overjoyed, forgetting about their performance in the exam and excited about the upcoming holidays. Swami, like a normal child, is desperate to have things that means fun for him, and he desperately wanted to play with a hoop and got cheated by a coachman. The coachman had promised to get him a hoop if he got 6 pies, and kept asking for 6 more pies. And then again he asked for another 6 more pies. He duped Swami of 3 6 pies and later on refused to recognize him. On 15th of August 1930, 2,000 citizens of Malgudi were on protest against the arrest of Gauri Sankar, a political leader of Bombay. Mani and Swami simply joined the protest like school students join protests and rallies without really knowing what is going on sometimes. So they joined the protest, and people started burning their foreign Lancashire goods, their caps, their coats, and many of them their caps. Swami was not sure whether his cap was a Khadar good or foreign goods. And along with others, he took off his cap and threw it into the fire. The next day, when he was going to school, someone informed him that there would be no school because a freedom fighter was arrested and sent to jail. The headmaster announced that the school would be open, but the boys, along with the crowd, along with the mob, disobeyed and refused to take classes. They shouted, "Bharat Mata ki Jai, Gandhi ki Jai, Gauri Sankar ki Jai." The people were going from school to school, banning classes. There were people throwing stones and destroying the school property as a part of the hartal. Swami also picked a handful of stones and broke the window panes of the headmaster's room. And unluckily, the peon saw him. And the next day at school, all the boys who did not come to school were questioned and punished. Swami was also interrogated for his act of violence and destruction of school property. The headmaster hit him again and again with his cane stick. At last, out of pain and desperation, Swami said, "I don't care for your dirty school," and rushed out of the classroom, collecting his books and fighting his tears. And that was his final exit from Albert Mission School. His father admitted him to the board school. In his circle of friends in Albert Mission, Sankar the Brilliant disappeared because his father got transferred. Somu the Monitor failed and thus excluded from the group. Samuel the P was promoted, but he suffered various health issues. He also grew to have many worries in life. Only Mani and Rajam remained friends. It was a few days later that Rajam came up with the idea of starting a cricket club, the Malgudi Cricket Club, with Swami and the other friends. They were all thrilled and excited at the formation of the cricket club. They decided to practice regularly. Rajam also invested a lot of money on the MCC Malgudi Cricket Club by buying new bats, balls and other items for practice. But the problem was that Swami belonged to the board school and it was not as easy going as Albert Mission. He compared his new school to the old school and he preferred the old one. According to Swami, this new school, board mission, was a strict school, and even the sound of the bell was not as nice or melodious as the one in Albert Mission School. The teachers were not friendly. Even the headmaster was not as approachable as the headmaster of Albert Mission. Every teacher acted like their subject was the only subject that they had to study, piling their students up with homeworks. There were also drill classes and scout classes, for which Swami was always late for the cricket practice. Rajam was always complaining about it, and Rajam and Mani decided to go and meet the headmaster of board school and asked to excuse Swami a little early, but they could not convince him. Swami was always in tension for not being able to meet the expectation of his friends, of his teammates, who admiringly and lovingly calls him the Tate of the MCC club. Tate was a famous cricketer, a good cricket player, and they would call Swami as Tate, and he was the hope of the MCC. One day when he had to rush out of home for practice, grandmother lovingly called Swami to come and sit by her side, and that she needed him. Swami replied rudely that he had to go. Granny requested him to get him a lemon for 3 pies and take 3 pies for himself. Swami reluctantly took the money. Granny told him lovingly that it was so urgent and he needed to bring it before she could count to 10. This irritated Swami, and he threw the 6 pies on the ground and ran off. Grandmother said that she had a pain in her stomach, but Swami only said, "If it is so urgent, send someone else." And he went to meet his MCC teammates. But all this while, his guilt conscience kept accusing and blaming him for being cruel to his grandmother. When he returned home, he was feeling guilty and afraid that grandmother might die. He silently walked into her room and called her. She was fine and dearly responded. Swami sat beside her and told her all about the Malgudi Cricket Club and about his teammates and how his teammates called him the Tate of MCC. And he also told her how cricket is played. He also told her what does it mean by calling him Tate. The MCC had a friendly match with the YMU, that is Young Men's Union. Swami tried everything to get off early from school to practice because for the captain of MCC, Rajam, Swami meant so much. Swami was the only hope. MCC also meant so much to Swami too. He tried to find excuses from his parents to stay away from school so he could practice with his friends. He tried to talk to the headmaster with the help of Rajam. He tried to beg his drill master to give him leave early. He even tried to get a doctor's certificate. When he missed drill classes for a whole week, the headmaster of the board school came to his class and humiliated him in front of all his classmates, in front of all the boys. Now we must remember that both Albert Mission School and board schools are just only boys' school. During those days, girls' education was not that important. And on insulting him in front of all the other boys, Swami felt embarrassed. The headmaster was passing abusive remarks. Swami was so overwhelmed with mixed emotions that he plucked the cane from his headmaster's hand and threw it out of the window and collected his books and ran out of the school. He went to Rajam and explained what happened in the school. They practiced their game for one last time before the friendly match with the YMU and they dispersed. Swami was afraid to go home and roamed around, and on the way he lost his way. At home, everyone was worried because Swami had not returned. His father went out to meet everyone that Swami would have met or went everywhere that Swami would have gone. Swami was found unconscious by a cart driver and brought to the district forest officer. On regaining his consciousness, he was told by Mani that they had already played the match and they lost. and also that Rajam never wanted to see him again. 10 days later, Rajam was going away from Malgudi forever because his father had been transferred to Trichinopoli. For Swami, his friends meant the world to him. So he felt terrible to betray his friends or make them unhappy. And the fact that he let Rajam down and he was going away forever made him feel very heartbroken. He could not go to visit Rajam these past days because of the feeling of fear, guilt, and shame. However, he treasured his friendship with Rajam and did not want Rajam to forget him. So he picked a book presented to him by his father and wanted to present it to Rajam because Rajam was a good reader. It was a tiny volume of Andersen's fairy tales. He brought it and barely gave it to Rajam. And at such a time, they could not exchange words. But long after the train left, Mani and Swami discussed that he would surely write to them and then they would continue to keep in touch. With that, we come to the end of the story, Swami and Friends. That's a short summary, but look into it and read it yourself. It is very funny, a humorous, and a very relatable childhood story. I personally enjoyed reading the novel, and I would encourage you also to read it. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.